Hey folks, welcome to Your Basket is Empty. We are equal parts content and consulting. On the consulting side, we work with digital agencies to help them grow and scale by offering fractional director services. On the content side, we aim to inform, inspire, and entertain the modern commerce community. We do that with a newsletter, events, and a podcast. Welcome to our YouTube series. If you want to learn more, go visit us at yourbasketIsEmpty.com. On this episode, I'm sitting down with Oliver Rhodes, good friend of mine. He's an e-com tech consultant and co-founder of Nolo Apps. We discuss what skills he acquired after the Peoplevox acquisition, why becoming a trusted advisor is an excellent sales tactic, what a dark stack is and why it's important, the power of an e-commerce tech curation, why software sales experience is an advantage when advising e-commerce brands, balancing work and life, and his secret business book recommendation. Ollie, welcome to the pod. How are you and where are you?
I'm good. I'm at home in my home office in Bruton in Somerset.
Nice. We'll get to your relocation from Tottenham to Bruton later on in the conversation. But I usually like to start these things with a bit of a rewind. And I know we could spend a lot of time talking about your time at Peoplevox. However, let's just do a little bit of a deep dive. Tell me a little bit about your time there. And I'm more interested in why you decided to sort of part ways after the acquisition and go out on your own, do your own thing.
Oh, I think the two is kind of one of the same, isn't it? So I've been at Peoplevox for 11 years by the time I left. And I joined straight from university when I was 21. So, yeah, doing warehouse management systems for 11 years.
Yeah, nice.
I think that's long enough for anyone, isn't it? But no, staying post-acquisition was one of the best things I've ever done. I knew I'd hate so many things about it. Mm-hmm. But I think I matured a lot in that year. I learned more about myself by being in that environment where it wasn't what I was familiar with. And now I've got a really good appreciation for anyone in a business that's been acquired, which has actually happened with a few of my clients where, you know, they go and buy another brand and they bring something in-house. And what's that like to have all of that, you know, a lot of what you build taken away from you in the things that you see as being the magic. And it really was that, like, we kept a lot of the good stuff, to be fair. We managed to dig in and hold on to some of the stuff that we thought really worked for the model that we had. But it was post-acquisition that I really learned a lot about, gave me that chance to reflect on how we were selling the warehouse system, how we were running that process, how I was operating. I'd become a bit of a total in the weeds nerd on how to do a warehouse system. And I was forced very, very quickly to try and work out how to sell it how to train like 3-4 different people on how to sell it. So yeah, it forced me to really condense the proposition, simplify it, work out what the best bits of it were. And we ended up hanging this whole proposition around kind of 3 core benefits and, you know, giving the name a model and doing all of these types of things, which I think has been really good for me now. Particularly when I'm looking at other software to work out like what is the thing that they really hang off rather than trying to sell everything. You know, drowning the customer in benefits actually has the opposite effect. You end up like overwhelming them with all the good stuff. And then they're like, wow, this is a big thing to think about. And they confuse like the amount of effort to learn about what you're teaching them about with the effort of doing it. And then the effort of implementing it. It like blows the whole thing up. When in actual fact, what you want is to make it as easy as possible for someone buying your thing to learn what it is super, super fast. So that was a big win from that year. And also, some of the connections I made. I met Ben Reed there. He was like the UK sales guy that I trained up. He's ended up being a really good friend.
Yep.
And I mean, it was very, very different estate, and got to the end of that year and kind of looked at what does the future look like with Descartes, what could the different roles be, And I was kind of lying to myself there of like, I was going to go and do this. Like, I'm not, I'm not that sort of 1,600 person company or someone. I'm not that
VP of
like,
sales at Descartes. Yeah.
I'm not that corporate bod. I think if I'd chosen that VP of sales corporate role, I wouldn't have been at Peoplevox for 10, 11 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I kind of figured, well, hang on a minute. If I'm jumping from my startup with some equity to an exit, that was a great story. I was like, whoa, this is good. But then, if I hadn't done Peoplevox, how would I feel if I was, 32 and I'd made it to VP of sales at Descartes? Well, for e-commerce or whatever it was, probably wouldn't be that pleased with my performance, honestly. And that's not being down on Descartes. It's just, if you go for that VP of sales stuff, there's sexier software companies with like, you'd want to be in someone in like a Series C, Series D, where they're trying to pound on into some kind of hyper growth and scaling up teams big time. And that's not the game at Descartes. They're a very, very steady ship, which is why they're actually a great kind of custodian for Peoplevox.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you're going to buy a warehouse system, you don't want to change it again quickly, and you want the company that you buy it from to be around in 5 years. Well, Peoplevox and Descartes are going to be around in 5 years, 10 years, whatever. It's like, they're a steady ship. They run their finances very, very well.
Yeah.
It's a corporate machine run by really smart finance people.
Yeah.
And there's good.
The stock market is reflecting that those sorts of companies are probably in favor than growth stocks at the moment.
Yeah.
So talk me through what you're up to now, because I want to talk a little bit later about your kind of unique skill set of being behind the scenes at a software company selling software to now working directly with brands on helping them grow and, think about their tech in a little bit more of a thoughtful manner. But like, what are you up to now from the brand perspective?
So post Peoplevox, I went to a startup for a year called Supply Compass, and we were doing it's a product category called PLM, product lifecycle management. But PLM is as big a category as ERP, probably like similar in terms of complexity once you start getting into it. So I did that for a year, and they ran out of money. Ran out of money, and I think maybe the first signs of kind of what was to come in terms of venture funding stalling.
Interesting.
But I don't, that isn't why we ran out of money. We ran out of money ultimately because you have to plan for not running out of money, no matter what happens. That was in March last year, and then I've been thinking like post fundraise close, I was thinking about maybe going and doing my own thing. And the thing that was driving that as to why was I going brand side was I had this idea planted in my head very early on in Peoplevox that to be really great at sales, you need to be a trusted advisor. And so I wrote down on a piece of paper in 2011, like, become an expert in e-commerce, whatever that meant. And that's always been my focus. So I've wanted, the thing I enjoyed about selling at Peoplevox is I'd get 8 to 10 new founders or operators speaking to me a week, and they would tell me what their problems were, and I could diagnose their issues and come up with solutions for them. And that turned, towards the end into like, show me your tech stack was the first question I'd ask anybody. And no one's got a diagram of their tech stack, really. They haven't. They're like, show me your tech stack. Oh, what do you mean? Well, they send you one, and it's a solid 3 out of 10, and it doesn't represent what's actually going on inside the business. So I did that at Peoplevox, went to Supply Compass, thought, oh, this would be different, completely new product category area, completely new teams inside an e-commerce business, and it was even worse. Like these product design, development, production, merchandising, at least with the warehouse, you can see how bad it all is. with those teams, it's all hidden away in Dropbox files and Google Sheets and things. You'll see a shipment tracker with £1 million worth of shipments being tracked in it, of like, this is how we're managing our orders of stuff coming in. That's the way it's being done, and it's very normal. So did that for a year, and then coming towards the end of the Supply Compass thing, I was like, right, if I combine that with the Peoplevox side of stuff, which was more customer experience, and now I've got the product development side, I think I could do some like consulting advisory. I didn't really have a shape for it, and I showed I basically built this Miro board of blocks. It was just my kind of challenge to myself of, can I map the process from like product idea being created? This was kind of from the Supply Compass thing of, I realized you had to start, where does an idea come from for a product, and how do you decide on the range that you're going to do, which is the product strategy, and we'll talk about strategy. And then that goes all the way through to fulfillment. And I just showed that to a couple of like people I knew, and said, like, this is what I'm thinking of doing. And they were like, yeah, we'd love you to come and do that with us. So yeah, I didn't really have I was fortunate in that it just happened suddenly, and that was what I'd been working on in the background, thinking that that's the direction I'd go in. So it was just pretty obvious to go for that.
And you touch on brands, companies, I suppose, generally speaking, maybe not having a great idea of their tech stack. What's the dark stack? You touched on it there, I think, a little bit. And why is it important?
So, yeah, that was my, I think you were probably one of the first people I spoke to about it. Like I was talking about the dark stack when I was still at Supply Compass. And I just realized that I'd been drawing these tech stacks for people, and that isn't how they were operating around these core business systems is an empire of Google Sheets or Excel files, which is where the data gets moved, manipulated, analyzed, whatever's being done. And that all funnels into the tech stack. So to draw up a tech stack that just looks like this sort of beautiful harmony of all this data flowing everywhere is just sort of a complete lie. It doesn't reflect the way that people work either. And any team, now I think of like any team without their own specialist system. So could be production, a warehouse team, a merchandising team. Anyone without a specialist tool is more than likely to be using a lot of Google Sheets and Excel files. And I get it, it's more than Google Sheets and Excel. I'd kind of broaden what is the dark stack. It's any system that you wouldn't naturally think of being in your tech stack. It's
the MISC, miscellaneous.
And it's not integrated. It's got data that exists in multiple other places in the business, and it's not being integrated back into it. So a really simple example is you're the photo shoot team for a brand, and someone gives you a line sheet at the start of the range that says, these are the products that we're going to be making, and these are the ones that we're going to need to shoot. And then like 6 weeks down the line, 2 of the products fail in sampling, a couple of new products come in, another sample comes back, and then a color changes. So we started with 25 products in the range. Now we've got 28, and 9 of them have changed or whatever. The photo shoot team don't get maybe they get told, but they get an email, or it goes on Slack. These products are gone. This one's in. This one's out. And that's happening. Product development and design is it's non-linear process. It goes like back and back, and the opposite of how a warehouse works, which is what was stood out most for me. I'm used to like an order comes in, you pick, pack, ship, boom, boom,
boom, boom.
Return comes in, bang, goes away. Like you know where all the flows are going to go. You can flow diagram it, and I was trying to flow diagram stuff at Supply Compass, and I was like, this is a joke. I can't flow diagram anything here. Like no one really knows what's going on. So it's more about how, in that scenario, you then go to shoot and you go and you do the shoot and 2 products get missed. So now we've gone and done the photo shoot and we don't have the products, or we didn't have that on that line sheet. It didn't say that Zalando need those products. So now we've not done the photo shoot with the back shot and the front shot in the way Zalando needs it. So now we're pulling the product again. So we need to pull a sample, and then and this is what's going on. So there's like the creative operations is one example, but that's every team, right? What I've just described is happening in e-commerce. Their e-commerce launch checklist is wrong. It's happening for the photo shoot team. The marketplace team are running around. Wholesale are pulling their hair out. They don't know what's going on. And that's, I guess that's how the dark stack, I think, exists most in, particularly in these brands where, people don't know what's going on at the end of the day.
It's dark. I get it. But so just to take a sort of step back then or maybe to the side rather. So there's the dark stack. Talk to me a little bit more about the kind of more conventional tech stack. And it's been something that I've noticed for many years, and that is that, the e-com brands are inundated with new stuff, right? New stuff, old stuff. There's like so much tech out there that can help them. How do you sift through the options and advise brands on what to use? And I know you're creating the Miroverse. You're creating something that will help visualize this. Talk me through all of that.
I don't know if that's going to help or just confuse people more. So I think with the tech advisory, my number one purpose is to curate solutions for people so that they don't need to go out and sift through 5-6 options. I can just present 2 or the one that I'd recommend going with. And the way that I do that is I try and evaluate solutions and the vendors away from a live opportunity for them. So I'll just reach out to them and have the conversation in advance and try and figure out where they fit in. Like I'm applying a lot of what I've done from like go to market in software, like understanding positioning and assessing it against like the SaaS maturity that I know. So like, is there a public API? What's the API guide like?
Yep.
Okay, they're funded. When did they last do the last round? Okay, because I don't want to advise something that's gonna run out of cash, like Supply Compass did. It's pretty close. It's pretty close to me, and I know these things happen. So I think there's the curation piece, and then the bit that I feel I'm adding into that is that I know what's on the other side, whereas I think it's really hard for founders or whoever looks after tech to really appreciate what it's like to be on the other side and be the software company that they're buying from, and how things that they don't tell you, but you can observe how that will translate into the experience that you get. Like an example of that would be, think about on product side, if you're in a product team in a software company, you may know as a product team everything about your product. You know every single feature because you can look in Jira and you can see all the things, and you can also see all the issues and all the tickets. Well, the sales team can't see all the issues and all the tickets and all the roadmap, and they don't know what's going to be prioritized. And marketing can't see that information either. And they don't know, for a particular use case or a company type, where the problem is going to be necessarily. And so people can sell to you with the absolute best intention, and they can sell you a dud because they're going through like the happy checklist of answering things in a certain way. Rather than often the person selling isn't the person delivering it. So they're not. So trying for the big purchases to overcome some of that risk. Yes.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, you've got a very interesting skill set there, because I feel that you're sitting at that intersection between what a brand, getting under the hood of what a brand, how a brand operates at quite at the coalface level, but then understand how a SaaS company works from a selling perspective. But just to take the SaaS company example there, for example, how do they make that better? Because I was under the assumption that, sort of the more modern product-led growth sort of theory is you have product, marketing, sales all together in one room, basically. So they avoid all of that sort of stuff. But is that maybe not happening as much?
It depends on the product, on the solution category, right? So one of the things that gets merchants like so far is just buying Shopify apps. You just go and all like Shopify apps that you install on the App Store and don't ever speak to anybody are, like, by definition, product-led growth with a really good distribution channel, which is the Shopify App Store. So you solve your problem with distribution. We just do this, but for Shopify, we put it on the App Store. Loads of merchants are going to find it. We do marketing. We go out to agencies. So those apps, it's kind of fine. But when you start to go beyond the early stage of just installing apps, and you need things that are more of a solution, you need either a solution salesperson to guide you through the buy, or you need a partner with the vendor to take you through it and help design the solution and implement it for you. And some solutions aren't simple enough to just sign up online and buy them. Like even something that might look super simple, like returns, for example, when you really start to get into it, like if you've got 5 warehouses around the world and 3PLs and 2 logistics partners, and in the UK you use a local carrier to return stuff, and then you just try and put in a return portal on top of that, it's just not that simple. There's and then you've got your ERP, and then you've got your Shopify store. There's like 5 different systems in there that you need to figure out how it all fits into. So I think the teams inside software companies struggle with this. Is the reality is that even if you've been in a business since its inception and you've been selling your product for like 4 or 5 years, you're not going to have in your mind for that particular vertical type person that you're selling to all the potential problems that they might have. You're going to be focusing on trying to sell your thing to them. Mm-hmm. And I think the answer that I had to this at Peoplevox was I had a feature list of everything that Peoplevox did. And then I also had a list of everything that I had ever been asked for, but we didn't do. And then I categorized every single feature by customer type, so that if I was talking to someone in furniture, I could click a button and it would filter out all the features, show me these are all the things we do, these are all the things we don't do, and these are, this is how to handle it as well. And I would always want to lose the sale early because I didn't want to waste my time. Speaking to someone and doing demo after demo. Get to the no as quickly as possible. So like, if I had someone coming in now and I had all my features documented and I've got a relatively complex solution such that the person buying it will never get to a level of competence to really make a fully informed decision, they're going to have to trust me to some significant degree. If someone's going to trust you and you're going to be the trusted advisor, I think the best play on that is to be upfront about your problems straight out the gate. You just come straight out with, look, okay, you're a furniture business. That means, like a specific thing with Peoplevox, it'd be like, do you then have batch tracking on individual item parts? Like, could a table leg change between 2 production runs so that the old tabletop doesn't work with the new leg? And they'd be like, yeah, that can happen. I'd be like, yeah, we're not for you. You're doing some crazy shit there. Like, that's just, it's not going to be a good fit for us. And sometimes they'd go, oh yeah, well, if we, but what if we don't have that as one of our requirements? And you go, if you're
yeah.
prepared to take
Simplify.
that away, if you're prepared to take that away, then we can play with that. And they would, I think if you lay out all of your issues up front, and then you give the other person a chance to really think about them, and be prepared to lose it early, but then you're still selling on your advantages. You're saying we don't do that, but we do this. Then they make that decision and they choose the downside that they want. And it's that thing of like, if you choose the downside and it going into it, then you're going to be far more accepting. It's where people just don't address those weaknesses, and then the person finds out like a year in that they're going to be like, they conned me.
Yeah,
we didn't
can't do this.
Yeah,
totally. Yeah, I remember trying to sell Shopify, or like Shopify services, and like talking about the limitations. And we had this idea of like, I don't know if it was a universal thing of like, don't fight the technology. So you list out all the limitations, and if the requirements are butting up against a limitation, we've got to have a very serious conversation here. Like, this is, like you said, it's either going to be incredibly painful in 6 months' time or a year's time, or we can have that conversation now and say like, look, this isn't going to work. Let's not fight it. Can we find some sort of compromise here? And it was surprising how many times when you went back to a brand and said, oh, you're actually doing this thing. Oh no, that's on our roadmap. Okay, well maybe we can pull that back a little bit, and therefore it becomes a much more seamless kind of sales.
That would be it. But a lot of software companies get to a point where they don't really have clarity across all the teams on what features they do or don't do. Someone in support's going, oh my God, can you just stop selling that thing? Because we're getting nailed for this. And product are like, oh, that thing's fine. And engineering think it's terrible because they've hacked the code base. But the sales team think it's great because we just closed 4 new deals last quarter. For that integration, this is all going swimmingly. And that's normal.
Yeah, I want to change gears slightly. I want to get back to maybe where you're at personally, and I want to talk about moving to the country at some point. But now you're in the kind of consulting world, and I'm very intrigued because I'm in the consulting world. It's like, what's the best thing about being a consultant? What's the most challenging?
So the main aim for me, and probably the best thing, is being able to work directly with like really great people inside the brands that I'm working with. So either the founders or people in the C-suite, and being involved in making big decisions for the business, and doing that with like tons of variety. So I'm speaking to all different people, which keeps my brain engaged. Kind of similar in the way that selling does. Like when you're selling, you normally have sort of 10 to 12 deals on the go at a time. And my approach with sales has always been to try and get inside the head of the person that I'm selling to and be on their side of the table. And it's just the same with consulting. And then therefore with that, I kind of see there are 3 levels to the consulting. So like level 1 is like people who want to pay for your time. Yeah, they just want to pay for time on the clock. They're like, I need a day, or they want a specific input and then an output to take place. And then there are other people who come to you and they want more of advice. Like they're a bit more open to the whole of me, of trusting me, not just with like what tech, but like actually listening and trying to take that advice on board. And that kind of broadens out a bit. And then I guess the third level, which is what I've always got in my head, is how can I become a partner to the people that I'm working with? And that's what's always been hard. Just selling a solution, that was really hard to do, because you sell your thing and then you're kind of done in a way, because that's the only thing you've got to sell. Whereas now, I've got clients, founders of businesses that call me up and WhatsApp me, and we chat about all sorts of things going on in their business. Which is what I did which is what I did with Jonathan, who was the founder of Peoplevox for 11 years. Like we talked about stuff all the time on the business and how things were going. And I like being a soundboard, but I also love people coming to me with their problems and then trying to come up with 2 or 3 ways to get through it. That's like my, I think the thing that just comes naturally to me is presented with a problem. Here are 3 ways to try and solve it. I see a way around it. I can usually put a positive spin on it for people. And that's the best thing, I guess, that when you find the clients who are ready to partner with you and trust you enough to do that.
Totally. And what are the challenges of being a consultant?
I think that the most challenging bit for me is that I'm just new to it. So I've only been doing this for a year, and I'm kind of viewing this as a 10-year, kind of in my second 10-year stretch. So I'm not trying to jump to what 10 years looks like. I probably don't even know what a year out looks like at the minute. But yeah, I'm pretty fresh to it. I'm not fresh to business, but I'm fresh to doing consulting with people.
You're an avid reader and consumer of very good content. Have you got any recommendations of books, courses? What have you been digesting recently?
Well, I think
I know you've got a wealth of knowledge. We need to condense it down into the top 3 or whatever.
Yeah. So the other side of consulting, right, is that when you get really busy, you don't have time. You don't have as much time to do the stuff that makes you really good when you are advising people. So as stuff like, I'm sure you have it the same, as stuff like ramps up, you get super maxed out, and you're not really in control of that. You can't create this like steady workflow where you've got the space around it. So yeah, I've not been reading as much as I'd like. I'll tell you, I've got one book that I've read that I've not told anybody really that I've read, because it's just so good.
Go on, let us in on the secret.
It's not a new one, but yeah, I put on a post. Oh yeah, this is the second best book I've read, and someone was like, "What's the first?" I was like, "Nah, fuck you. I'm not going to tell you what the best book is." Like,
you're going to pay me to learn that sort of information, mate.
No way. So yeah, and the thing I love about this book is it looks rubbish, and for that reason, it kind of sat on my shelf for a little while, and I didn't read it. So it's called The Road Less Stupid.
Yep.
Looks garbage, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The Road Less Stupid. Keith Cunningham, advice from the chairman of the board. I was like, oh, Keith Cunningham. He's going to be some straight talking. Here we go. That's
going to be some dry dust.
Here we go. And it's not. It's the opposite. Honestly, he's absolutely brilliant. His basic thing is like, look, operators react and sweat, owners think and plan. It all hinges on thinking time. And his whole thing is about taking time out to think, and that success is all about avoiding the dumb tax. It's like, if you're a smart person working in a good space, how successful you are on a long enough timeline will basically depend on how much you can avoid doing stupid shit.
Yeah, interesting.
And each chapter finishes with like 10 to 15 questions for your thinking time. And he writes stuff under them like, if you think about these 3 questions for less than an hour each, you've missed the point. Like, God, it's hurting my brain to think about. It's hurting my brain to think about this for 5 minutes, Keith. You'll be doubting my absolute foundations here. But let's just go with it. So yeah, it's wild. The road less stupid, advice and the
road
chairman
less
of the board.
stupid.
And it's once you know it and you've heard of it now, you'll see some very successful people chip up every now and then and mention it. It's
and talk about it. Okay, interesting. Well, it
it's a
certainly
solid book.
flies against my convention. I always judge a book by its cover. I'm a firm believer that you should, but there we go. I've proven wrong every so often. I want to project out a little bit as we round out. So you moved to Bruton. You've left the big smoke. What's the plan for the next sort of like, what's your 3-year plan? I know we talked about a 10-year horizon, but that's probably too far. Like, what's the 3-year plan? Where are you in 3 years?
I don't know. I don't know.
Where do you want to be?
I haven't got a great.
Do we need to read the book?
I haven't got a great 3-year plan or like some master plan at the minute. Like as I've got a 10-year plan. I know where I want to be in 10 years, but what does the next 1, 2, 3 years look like? I'm going to be ready for opportunities. I'm going to be agile to what comes around and try and put myself in the best position possible that if I see a really great opportunity or something starts to take traction, I want to be someone that's in a place where I can just go and take advantage of that and move really fast towards the right stuff. But I'm not trying to rush there. I think I fight myself a lot with, as I think everyone does, where they feel like in a day they've not made enough progress, or in a week they've not made enough progress, or in a month they've not made enough progress, or I can have the best month ever and I can be like totally down about it, thinking this is all terrible and seeing all the bad. So it doesn't, how well things go doesn't influence my mood particularly. But yeah, having that, trying to have a long-term plan. But yeah, I'm out, I've also got a 20-month-old and a 5-year-old. So anyone who's got kids that age, like I'm in it's a very small period of time where they're going to be this young. Yep. And they're gonna want so much of me. So like part of what I'm doing now is to have that time available to them. Like what's the point? What's the point in I don't know. What's the point in any of this if you don't have time for the things that matter, and you can't allocate time to doing that stuff? But also on the other side, it's like I get up in the morning and I'm with my kids for 2.5, 3 hours before everybody gets out the house. So like I always I chuckle at everyone's like, win the morning, win the day. I'm like, yeah, go and get kids and then try and win your morning. You feel like you've won the morning if everybody's had their toast and cereal and you've made a coffee before 9 o'clock. Like it just reframes everything for you, doesn't it? So.
Yeah, well, there you go. I think there is a plan in there somewhere, and I think that's some sage advice for anyone who's got kids, who's a consultant, and who's looking to move out of the big smoke to Bruton. I think we'll leave it there. Ollie, thank you so much for joining me.
Sweet, thanks, Tim. Cheers, dude.